All right. Oh, look at that. It's 6 o'clock. I am going to kick this off here. So I'm going to click some buttons, and I'm not exactly 100% sure what's going to happen. So I'm going to hit, what am I going to do? First, I need to hit share. Let's start there. Son of a gun. All right. So I'm going to share my screen, this one. So if things go well, you should be seeing a presentation. And if I hit play, you should now be seeing the, I wonder if I, bear with me just momentarily as I try to sort out how to, that's not what I want. Sorry. You would be surprised as to how much trouble it is trying to test this stuff without actually being publishing live. So, all right, well, we're good. Here we go. I'm going to just go ahead and hit play. So, all right. Oh, boy. Hello and welcome to the Las Vegas WordPress Meetup. This is the first time running it in webinar style, and I went with the webinar style because I didn't know how many people were going to be on here, and just having it as an open Zoom just means anybody could talk at any time, and I thought that that might be a little bit distracting, so I'll just run it. In your software, in the Zoom software, you should see something like what is on my screen now. There are a couple of things which I will say. First off, we have the chat. You can obviously chat, and that's really, if you think about it, that's going to be chat amongst yourselves for the most part. But if you do have specific questions for any of the panelists, myself or Jody tonight, go ahead and use that Q&A button that I've highlighted down there. And that will throw it into the Q&A thing that I will see on my screen up here. The other nice part about that is, even if for whatever reason we don't get to all of the questions during the, hey, somebody just opened the chat, thank you, perfect. If for whatever reasons we don't get through all of the questions during the webinar, I will be able to, those will get saved, and so I'll get a copy of those, and then I can actually answer any questions after the fact. There is also a raise hand, lower hand option right there. If you have something to add or want to speak for whatever the heck reason, you can use that. I will tell you that while I'm in the middle of presenting in Keynote, yeah, I can't see any of that that's going on. So this won't take very long, and we'll get to a couple of presentations where it'll be a little less formal, not so much inside of a keynote. So, all right, so that's that. Let's go on to the next slide, which is, hello. There we go. So the WordPress Meetup group, if you aren't already, you can sign up on Meetup. Just search for Las Vegas WordPress Meetup group. We're almost to 2,000 members now. We meet monthly on the third Tuesday of each month. Normally we're downtown at Work in Progress, which is a great little venue for co-working, and also they have some fantastic event space for events like this, actually, which are really great, and they donate that space to us. So please, if you ever are in Vegas and need somewhere to co-work, please go check out Work in Progress. We also have a website, wpvegas.com. This is where we keep track of things like the monthly meetup notes. We have Laura Coronado, who she takes notes at our meetup, and then she'll post a roundup afterwards of links or things that we talk about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are a couple of other things. Here is Slack. If you're interested, we do have a Slack channel, which is a fun way to just kind of interact during times when we're not at the meetup. It is by invite only, so please go to on wpvegas.com, click Slack up there in the top right-hand corner, and then you can easily sign up. We also have a Facebook group, which is, it's a closed group, invite only, but when you go to it, it's group/WP Vegas. You can see the URL up there. We do, as long as you're not, completely crazy, we'll let you in. And even some of those people we let in anyway, just because it adds to the fun. So tonight, I'm very excited. One of my longtime friends and former coworkers, Jody Riccelli, is joining us. Jody works at Web Dev Studios. She's Director of Business Development. She's going to be doing a presentation. She will be up first, where she's going to talk about how to sell WordPress as a solution. And then following that, this guy right here is going to do a demo of a plugin called Slick Slider. And yeah, let's see. Look at that. That's it. We're done. That was the end of the crazy. We can stop sharing my screen. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jody. I will mute myself, and Jody, you can take over and dive in.
Awesome. First of all, how does it sound? Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, because I put in headphones, as you all heard my dogs bark just a few moments ago. That's my big caveat here. I was actually supposed to be in Vegas this week doing this meetup in person. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I'm back in Philadelphia. It's a little bit late here. This is their time where they usually are outside getting the Zoomies. So I have them all situated now with toys. I put the headphones in, so hopefully they will not bark again. But it is also South Philadelphia and St. Patrick's Day, and believe it or not, people are still out. So, but I'm actually very excited to be talking with all of you tonight. And John, I really appreciate you extending the offer to have me come speak to this group. I love Vegas. I had the pleasure of being at your WordCamp this past year, 2019, and that was really amazing and super fun. So some of your names were really familiar to me just from that event when I was there. What was it, September of 2019, I believe, right? So today, I kind of adapted this presentation a little bit last minute, I'll be very honest with you, because in light of everything that is kind of happening in the current climate right now, it seems a little distressing almost to start to really talk about selling. I mean, we're going to still do that, right? But I also wanted to take some time to think about how we position ourselves in a climate that is in crisis, essentially, and how we keep our businesses afloat, and how we still be evangelists for WordPress and the things that we're doing in a time where people are maybe a little bit more hesitant to spend money or to engage with new vendors in any capacity. So we're going to get into some of that as well. All right, I guess let's go ahead and jump in. Please feel free to ask questions if you have them. I want to just start telling you a little bit about me, to give you just some context on why I enjoy maybe talking about this stuff at a high level. So when I was in college, I actually studied interpersonal communications. To me, that was the thing that was most fascinating, just how small groups of people communicate. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that I would end up in the tech space, because when I was a freshman in college, they were actually saying, have you heard of this thing called the World Wide Web yet? So this job that I'm doing right now was not even in existence when I was in school, but I knew this communication piece would somehow be very useful to me. And I can tell you that, especially in this week, I've been so grateful that I'm in the tech community and the tech space as a profession, because I just think we have the opportunity to do a lot of good, especially in a situation where everybody has to kind of function online right now. Over the years, though, I've had a million different jobs, from detailing cars to singing the national anthem at games to working at Verizon selling Yellow Page ads. And then inevitably I ended up exactly where I was supposed to be. And that was working with clients to find out what some of their challenges were so that I could help them find a solution to meet those. At one point I did have my own small business, and that is kind of what pushed me into learning WordPress. And then I just made the gradual transition to where I am now at Web Dev Studios. Oops. So who I am not. Some other caveats for you. If you see in this little picture, you'll see two of your Vegas friends there, John in the Batman mask, in the back row, and of course, Laura up front there. That was at WordCamp US in Nashville, 2017, when we were all together. So I always joke that I'm not a good speller, but it's truthfully one of the things that I struggle with. And I certainly am not one that has all the answers, and I would never pretend to be. And I think that that's why communication is so vital, because together we can really get to all of those answers. I don't consider myself a developer, although I understand it at a very high level. And I certainly don't consider myself a designer, but I love to talk about design in that respect. And as you will see, I'm not the best slide maker either. So I just want to talk about sales and why, I think when we hear the word sales, we instantly feel some kind of emotions. And usually those emotions are associated with not great feelings, right? So if you think about it, when you hear the word sales, you might think of people who are maybe slimy or not trustworthy, or you might be hesitant to engage with somebody who does sales. And to be quite honest, for me, the word sales is not one of my favorite to use, but I don't think that it deserves the connotation that it gets. Because really, what is it? So the technical definition of sales, if you were to look this up in the dictionary right now, the definition is the exchange of a commodity for money, the action of selling something. I took that definition, I just altered it a little bit, and it's the one that I use for myself. Sales really is just about providing solutions to challenges that a client may be having, but also being respectful of their budget. That is all that we're doing. When we are selling somebody something, we are saying to them, hey, you have a problem? I have an answer. Let's come together. I'll give you my answer for some money, and we're going to move on and be really great. So how do you sell WordPress? That's the big question. That's the thing that we want to talk about. How do we do it? How do we sell it? Can I see chat, John, or no? Did you say that I cannot see it when I'm presenting?
You can, but if any questions come in, I'll holler them out for you, so you don't even need to worry about it. I got you.
Okay, so I am curious to see, I opened the chat window now. I am just curious to see if anybody has any thoughts on this particular question. How do you sell WordPress? It's going to be a little hard to kind of like do instant communication. So I'm just going to give you the answer in anticipation, because I know you all want to see it. You ready? You do. That is my answer. And the reason is very simple, right? If we go back to our original definition of what sales is, what are we doing? We are offering a solution to a problem. The solution in and of itself is not WordPress. It is what we are able to do with it. That is the solution to the client's problem. And that is where we need to zero in on. That's where we need to focus. If we get hung up on the technologies, we're already going into those conversations with clients at a deficit. So I want to talk about this at a higher level. I want to talk about the needs that a client may have and why we have the right solution for it that just maybe so happens to be WordPress. All right, so what are some of the advantages of using a content management solution like WordPress? It's affordable in comparison to all the other ones out there. If you were to compare it to like Drupal or AEM or any of those, it is very affordable. It's open source, meaning that we have a ton of people at any given time contributing to this, making it better, creating additions like plugins that will have it do so many different things beyond our wildest imagination. And by keeping it open source, it makes it something that is very obtainable. It has SEO and advantages, of course, because it's, Google appreciates the way that WordPress is structured. So there are some SEO advantages there. It's certainly scalable. I mean, the things that we've been able to do as an agency at Web Dev Studios, the way that we can push the boundaries of what WordPress can do is pretty incredible. So we know that it's scalable all the way up into the biggest enterprise-sized clients. And it's also a wonderful ancillary CMS, meaning, let's say you are, or you do have a client, or you know a client that's using some other technology at their place of business. There's still a place for WordPress, but about a marketing site that needs to get spun up quickly. or maybe they have an event site that needs to get spun up quickly, or perhaps they just want to use the content management piece of WordPress to make sure that their content creators are able to manage their content very easily. So there are some advantages. I am wondering if anybody else wants to shout out in the chat room, in the chat box, any other solutions that you can think of that WordPress solves. Anything that comes to mind.
Hey, Jody, I'm also going to throw the first question at you, which comes from Christina Jackson. She asks, what do you say to clients who say they can do it themselves in Wix or Squarespace?
It's a great question, actually. I'm gonna pause on that for a second because we're gonna talk about that actually on the next slide for sure.
Sounds good.
But it is a great question. All right, so I'm kind of like looking at some of these answers right now. One of the reasons I use WordPress a lot is because the admin area is so customizable and user-friendly. Thank you, Rachel. I think that that's actually such a wonderful point too, because the thing about WordPress that I love is that we can think of the admin of WordPress or the dashboard of WordPress essentially as almost its own user journey or user story for any content creator. And we could customize that in such a way that the operational workflow for a user becomes almost effortless. And people really appreciate that. So I think that that is actually a very big deal. So there's a ton of advantages to WordPress. We could probably do another question, John?
Thomas actually also wrote, he wrote his response in the question box, but the many plugins that are available for WordPress.
Absolutely. So this gives us like these little amazing pieces of software that can expand the limits of WordPress can do. And and so many of them are free too, right? So this makes it such an affordable solution for so many people. So we know that there's a ton of things that WordPress does really, really, really well.
I have one of my own that I would like to add in there.
Please do.
I love the idea of not having to, like a client should never feel that they are, roped in and stuck with the company that builds their site. I like the idea of being able to have a client come in, I build them a site, and when I'm done, it's theirs, and they can now go run it without me lording over them.
See, that's a great point too, right? Because it's open source and we know that people have access to how things are created in WordPress. It allows it to be, and there's also, here's the caveat there, right? If everybody's using the correct coding standards to create the site, it should be very easy for one developer to go in and pick up on that work. And it empowers the client. It really empowers the client to take over this website and be able to run it effectively. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide a little bit. So we know that, again, WordPress does a ton of amazing, wonderful things. What we want to talk about really is how those things translate into our clients. So I always say there's just some basic principles when you're in sales and you're dealing with clients. You have to be patient with them. One of the reasons that this becomes so important is because I think and I'm going to say salespeople just for semantics right now and for lack of a better term, because we are in fact talking about sales. So whether you're doing sales or you're doing biz dev, we'll just say salespeople for all intents and purposes throughout this presentation. Being patient is essential because there's such an education piece that needs to happen within our job. If we're offering a solution to a challenge that a client is having, we better have a really thorough explanation as to why our solution is the correct one. And therefore we become teachers in so many ways. So to go back to the question we had earlier, what happens when a client says to you, hey, I can do this myself in Wix and Squarespace? That is perhaps true, but the learning curve that it is going to take for you to figure out one of those two technologies, that's one piece of it. Also, what is a project without strategy? I can't even imagine taking a step back, not taking a step back, and sitting and thinking through what I actually need. And Wix and Squarespace don't actually give you that. What do I need in my navigation? How should a user navigate through this website? What are the appropriate calls to action? This is information that we've all studied years to learn. And you're not going to get that from a do-it-all solution that just allows you to move modules around. Anyone can create a website on Squarespace and Wix, but it doesn't mean it's going to be one that converts. It certainly doesn't mean that it's going to be one that makes you money. And the only way to do that effectively is to have a plan in place that outlines how that website needs to go together. So yes, anybody can move modules around in a custom or a solution like Squarespace or Wix, but that's not the real art that comes into creating a website. The art of creating a website is in how those things go together, how a user is going to navigate through it, how it's the fastest, how it's optimized, how it's SEO friendly, how we know we're going to scale it, how is it going to convert, how do we get analytics. These are the things that we need to teach our clients that are important. It's not just about getting something up on the web. If it were, nobody would be struggling right now. But the reality is we're seeing something I think that is so very telling. How many clients were not prepared for everything to go online? The numbers are really astounding. There's so many businesses up to enterprise level that were not prepared for their whole entire staff or all of their employees to be home, working from home, and they certainly did not have great plans in place to disseminate information to their clients and their customers, or for their clients and customers to do the things that they needed to do online. That is why you are the experts. Now, oftentimes when you're working with a client, you may be working with more than one person, and that is where you become the master facilitator. And you have to have, or at least get conversations to a place where everyone is feeling heard, or you will not get anywhere with that project. So if there are multiple people in a project, it's very essential that everybody feels like they have said their piece and that they've been heard and that they have had some input into the project. Also, anytime you're working with a client, you as the expert, you as the person working with that client, think long-term. It's never just a one-off project. If it were, they really wouldn't need us. Like, to John's point, it's great to be able to give over that website and empower that client to take it over and to do more. But ultimately, the goal is that that website was so successful that they want to come back because they need more functionality. They need a phase 2. They want more. You set that stage from the beginning, from selling from the beginning. This often will require you to invest more time up front with the client. I know we want to just talk to a client and get to the estimate and get the proposal out and get their signature and call it a day. But taking a little extra time up front to do things, a little bit more thoughtful will benefit everybody in the long run. Research, which we're going to talk about that in a few slides, researching more for a client. And then finally, always listen more than you talk. I don't know if any of you use any of these tools on your like Zoom conferencing or Uber conferencing, but like, for instance, I use Uber Conference for first phone calls with clients because it's easy. They don't have to put in a PIN. They don't have to download anything, so it makes it less challenging. Less barriers to entry to get them on the phone. And one of the things that Uber Conference does is at the end of a call, it will tell you how much time you spoke versus how much time the other person spoke. And I am obsessed with these statistics. If I get off of a call and notice that I have talked more than my client, I'm failing. I didn't listen enough. And so to me, that is an essential piece of what we do, is being a great listener. So we're teachers, we're facilitators, we're planners, we're investing time with somebody, we're researchers, and we're listeners. We're not just salespeople. So what are the needs of our clients? Some of these we addressed already by talking about all of the amazing things that WordPress does as a solution, right? Oftentimes a client is going to need a platform in any capacity that is scalable, because again, if we're doing our job right, they're going to have to grow whatever we give them. We already answered this. WordPress, scalable, done. Secure. They need something that is, especially in this day and age, all these data concerns that are coming up, GDPR, people are just, scared about their information online. And truth be told, for a very long time, not now, but years ago, WordPress was always the one where people are like, I don't know if it's really secure. We've all had to deal with that from a client. Is it really secure? Is it really safe? Here again is something that like another platform is not going to be able to give your client. Your expertise and how you lock it down, how you make it safe, how you make it secure, the methods that you put in place to ensure that your client is happy with the security of website and that their clients and customers don't have to fear their data. This also means, potentially working with their internal IT department or perhaps even the hosting company that they've selected. So again, going back to that facilitation that you need to do, this is another piece where it comes in. This is not just WordPress. We cannot put all the responsibility on WordPress. We have an obligation to our clients to make sure that things are updated and that they're on a platform that is right for their security needs. It integrates easily with all the things. We talked about plugins and how we can use plugins to push the boundaries of WordPress or push the limitations of WordPress. But the other great thing about WordPress is it has a REST API, which means it gives us the ability to integrate it with so many different third-party features that it is, I think, oftentimes very exciting for a client when they say, hey, I'm testing out this new social media platform or whatever it is. And we already know if it has an API, we're going to get it to work with WordPress. Oftentimes clients have concerns like they need things to be multilingual. We're in a global world right now. English and Spanish, absolutely. That's pretty much like kind of basic for the majority of the sites that are happening right now, but a ton of other languages, right? And WordPress, again, can answer this need for our client, whether it be through using a plugin or another custom solution that we create for our client. Oftentimes, Rachel mentioned, kind of customizing the admin of WordPress. One of the ways that we can do this is with user roles and creating those varied workflows depending on how somebody needs to use the site. This is a real thing that clients will come to you and say, I am having this challenge with any platform, specifically with platforms that don't even think about things like this. Again, this is where your expertise really comes in handy, and you can say, hey, we're going to create something so that your content creators can navigate through the admin brilliantly to get their content up, because content is king, and the faster and the more accurate it gets up, the better off it is. It offers flexibility to a team through things like user roles and varied workflows, but it also enables your team to be able to add more features to a website really easily because of the content management piece. Oftentimes clients too are going to need your project management expertise to wrangle their team. We talked about this a little bit in facilitating, right? You use that. That's a strong asset to have when you can say, hey, we can get your team to come together to make decisions to move forward. That includes having structure for the project and also having strict timelines. And then sometimes your clients need the ability for you to be a little bit flexible with invoicing and billing. Especially now, if you have any small business clients, I know that they are scared, and I know that they are probably struggling a bit. And so we may need to think of some creative solutions to work with them to make that happen. And I'm not saying you should change your pricing or, do anything like that. I'm just saying be open to being flexible. Is there another question, John? I see things flashing.
They were just wondering how come you weren't very excited. No, your enthusiasm is showing through. And I said that I'll be having you do all of my presentations from this day forward. Thank you.
I actually do get very excited. I love this stuff. I think it's a very cool industry that we're all in. And one of my favorite things in the world is to be able to talk with clients about, what we could create for them. I just think that to me is like one of the most fascinating things that I could have chosen to do with my career path. But that's only because Brad, he's still on, right, Brad? So I have to say some nice things about him.
No, he's not. You can talk bad.
Oh, great. No, I was going to say that's, he was lucky enough to, I was lucky enough to meet him and work with this amazing team. There's like 40 engineers at WebDev, and they're all smarter than me. And it's so easy to do what I do because they're just all geniuses. Okay, so I wanted to go back to the research and planning a little bit. I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but I want to talk about it a little bit more because I think that this is what separates really good salespeople from really great ones. The great ones are going in to talk to a client informed and ready. Now, here's the thing. There's no way in your position that you could know everything about every industry, and I don't expect you to. What I think we need to do is just gain some familiarity with that client's business and the client themselves. I'm a little old school in that I do have a CRM, but if you were to look at my CRM, which is HubSpot, that is the one that I use now, used to use Copper, switched to HubSpot. If you look at some of the notes in my CRM, you would literally laugh because it's like, daughter loves Mickey Mouse. They are Philadelphia Eagles fans or whatever. I get all these tidbits from clients. I think that they're so vital. That's kind of like goes back to some like grassroots marketing principles, but I think that those things are really essential. And I put them in the client's file because if something cool comes up, like if there is, I don't know, if Philadelphia Eagles convention that Mickey Mouse is going to be at, I will email that client without talking about anything sales related and say, hey, I remember when you were telling me about how much your daughter loves Mickey, and I found this really cool event. I thought you would be interested in it, and here you go. And I think stuff like that is just, it goes above and beyond what we should be doing. And that's the kind of stuff that clients really appreciate. Like I, for instance, had a client that one time mentioned that they loved oatmeal cookies from New York. They were from overseas and they couldn't get good oatmeal cookies in England. And so I had cookies delivered to them before they went to the airport so that they could take them back to England for their family. And it was what, like $30 to have cookies delivered on Tri Caviar or whatever. But that little gesture just goes so far. So take the time to understand your client, their likes and their dislikes, their challenges, right? There's a point later on in this presentation that I'm going to actually mention now because I think it's important. Anytime you're working with a client, one thing I think that is essential to remember is that the client, the project that you're doing with them could be a career maker or breaker for them too. Whoever you are working with, 9 out of 10 times, there is somebody else they're answering it to, a partner, a business partner, an investor. If they're in some kind of like larger corporation, they have bosses, right? So the project that they're doing is going to make or break them in some way. So they have a lot riding on it too. You need to understand their motivation for wanting the project as well. Research their competitors. Figure out what their competitors are doing well and what their competitors are not doing well, and learn their current environment. Just understand, going back a little bit to that operational workflow, how they're managing content. I think that that's probably the most important thing, and figure out what challenges they're having with it. I'm sometimes amazed when I sit with a client and I say, let me see how you navigate through your dashboard. And some of the challenges they have are nothing that I would have ever thought of, like how to upload an image, right? I never thought that that was something that was challenging in WordPress, but it could be a blocker for some people. You need to know kind of where those blockers are for them in their current environment. If they give you an RFP or they give you documentation or anything else that they give you, study it, learn it, understand it, look for the Easter eggs because they're always there, find them. Gather examples of projects that you have done that are in fact similar to what they're looking for so that you can show real life examples. And if you're able to, I don't recommend doing work on spec, I don't. But if there is a way to do a quick mock-up or maybe even a quick wireframe, or perhaps even put together a quick sitemap, just something a little extra for that proposal, it goes a long way. And then lastly, over communicate, be very clear. And I wrote it twice because I mean it so much. Be very clear. I always tell this story. I'm going to quickly tell it. WordCamp US, the very first one in Philadelphia, 2015 and 2016. I was one of the organizers because I live in Philly, and I was tasked with coming up with those stuffed wapoos that everybody got as swag. I don't know if you were there, you saw them, whatever. They were just like a little 6-inch stuffed wapoo stuffed animal. We had pictures of what wapoo looked like. We had examples of logos. We had all of this stuff. And it took 10 prototypes to maybe get it right. And I learned so much about how a client communicates their project needs to me by watching myself trying to communicate what I needed for the stuffed animal to another company. I thought that I was always so crystal clear and that I over communicated everything, when in fact I learned that what my definition of clear was very different than other people's. And it was simple things like when I say yellow, actually that could mean 100 different things. So when I say be clear, be very, very clear. This is one of my favorite quotes. It's in every presentation that I do. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. This is where we fail. This is where sales break down. When we think that we have communicated everything that we needed to, that we've understood the client, when in reality, all we did was talk. And so if you ever want to really get to know yourself and how you are as a salesperson, do retros every time you either win or lose a client. Sit with yourself or other team members, and just like you would do a retrospective on a client, on a project, do it on the sale. And you are going to start to see trends on things that you did really well and things that you maybe didn't do so well. And you'll learn a lot about yourself. And often the problem when a sale doesn't happen is because, one, we did not understand what it was that they were struggling with or their actual need. And two, we didn't demonstrate value to solve that problem. That's it. I don't care what anyone says. It's never really about money. It's never really about this. It's never really about that. It's we didn't understand their problem and give them a solution that they could see the value in. That's where sales, or the communication of sales, breaks down. Your proposal. When you're proposing your solution to your client, set expectations ahead of time. I like to say, hey, I'm going to work on this proposal. It's going to take me about a week, or it's going to take me 2 weeks, or whatever it is, right? Up front. And I'll often say to them, when I'm finished with the proposal, I want the opportunity to sit with you and review it in real time, whether that be face-to-face or on a Zoom call. Because, and I blame myself, I may not have caught everything, and I want to make sure that I've answered all of your questions and get your feedback in real time. So let's just do it together, and then I can make the adjustments I need to make and send it out to you. And I say this in the very first phone call that I'm talking to a client. I want the expectations for the proposal process to be very crystal clear. Writing a personalized and thoughtful proposal, I would say, is my biggest challenge in my position. I don't believe that I'm a great proposal writer. I lean on people a lot to help me with those, and I think it's okay to admit that. I've been doing this for nearly 10 years, all in all, doing WordPress sales. And I truly believe that it's just one area that it is not my strength, but I'm getting there. Every year, I just get a little bit better on how I write proposals. My point of saying this is it's okay to lean on people who are good writers, to have them assist you in putting together a proposal. You don't have to be an expert in all things. What you need to be an expert is knowing who around you is the expert in those things and pull them in to help you when you need it. I'm lucky to have people like Laura, who are brilliant writers and editors on our team, who I know I could go to at any time and say, please edit this or massage this or make me sound better. And she does in 2 seconds. And then I could get the proposal out the door. It's okay to lean on people. Always focus on the relationship and not the price. This is kind of obvious, or at least I hope it is. How many times have you worked with somebody and they left that company, or their company closed, or they went somewhere else, or whatever? If that relationship is still intact, there's still new business to be had. It had nothing to do with the price of the project. The relationship is what matters. And to go to my next point of demonstrating value, like I said, where the sale breaks down is when we didn't listen and when we didn't demonstrate that value in our proposal. Now, let's be honest. If you give a client a proposal, they go to the price page first, right? We all know this. This is not like, and I'm sure if you've ever gotten a proposal for anything, you go right to the cost. You look at the bottom line, that's what you want to see. This is why it is essential to go over the proposal with them, because they can't do that then. You're screen sharing it, you're doing whatever, you're taking them through all the value before they can get to the price. That is why it's essential. You need to demonstrate that value. If you have clients who have a little extra budget and you can do the discovery first, always go this route. I love this route. I think it's a brilliant way to do a project, because honestly, how much information can you get from a few sales calls? It's very, very difficult. So to pull them right into a discovery session and really get into the nitty-gritty of the timeline and the work required for the project, that is going to help them build trust in you. And then deliver the proposal in person, if that's an option. I'll say that 1,000 more times, probably. Oh, and there's the two pups that were barking. I also like to try to fit them into every presentation I do, but that is Sir Benjamin Franklin and Arya Bark. This morning, me trying to get them excited about St. Patrick's Day, which I failed miserably, but I did promise them corned beef. And then just, the 4 Agreements is a book. I'm not going to go through these. To me, if there's a great sales book in existence, it's this one. And it is not a sales book. It really isn't. And but I just think that this is so telling of what we do. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Certainly don't make assumptions, and always do your best. I always feel like if I could live by these 4 things in my life on any given day, that I'm going to be okay, that I'm doing okay. And then remember, and I mentioned this, that a good website could be a career maker for a client. Clients have goals too, understand them. This is probably not a popular opinion, but it's not always important that your customer is happy. Sometimes when you are telling them the truth, it's uncomfortable. And guess what? It's okay as long as you're telling them the truth, because a little bit of tension is okay. Clients don't always remember how a project started, but believe me, they remember how it ended. So always go out on a good note. And no one went to school to learn how to be a client. So back to that education piece, teach them how to be a great client. And then your tips for success. Don't multitask. Stop it. If you're on a call with a client, close Facebook, close your phone, do whatever you can. Be present. Choose your words wisely. Be impeccable with your word. Invoke action whenever you can. So any time that you're talking to a client, always finish with a question. Can I call you tomorrow? Can we set a meeting for next week? Is there anything that would prevent you from moving forward with this project? Always provoke action. Get out there. Be seen and be heard. Position yourself as an expert in your field. Use a CRM to manage your clients, because that's really important. You don't want to forget things, even if it's just old school calendar and a notepad or whatever. To get started, make sure you have information on your clients and a good list of when to follow up with them. Stay informed of what's happening in your industry. And then kind of like my golden rule in life, if a task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, do it right now. That includes emails. Client emails you, you know you can send an answer really quick, do it. Even if the answer is, hey, I received your email. I want you to know that I saw it. I'm going to get to this as soon as I can, but I just want to acknowledge that I read it. That stuff goes a long way. And then finally, track and measure your results, because the only way that you're going to know if you're making any improvement in what you're doing is to have some hard data to look at. So I really encourage you to do those retros after a sales cycle, win or losing the project, to figure out where you are. Figure out how long it is taking you to do proposals, so you understand kind of like your investment into getting a new client. All of those statistics start to become really important to help you kind of grow and move forward. And then just some other things, relationships are everything. Your team is a reflection of you. Your online world is important. You're never too big, famous, or good, or talented to do anything. Passion is important, but determination is what will propel you forward. You're gonna get tired, so take care of yourself, because that's essential. And never, ever, ever stop learning. And then for the final slide, I thought, if we wanted to have a little bit of discussion about what we do in a time of crisis like this, when we have a national pandemic, everybody's kind of locked inside. What can we do for our businesses to keep them holistic and healthy? We can certainly talk about this more. And that is all, folks. That's everything I got. That is my Twitter right there, Jody_Richelli. I would love for you all to reach out and say hello and keep in touch, because I just think that I learned so much from all of you too in getting to talk with you. So please do not hesitate to reach out on Twitter.
That was fantastic. I don't know what you're selling, but I'm ready to buy it. I'm so excited. So real quick, does anybody have any questions that they want to ask Jody? I know this is a little bit of a weird format for doing it, and I get that. But if anybody has anything they want to say and you don't want to type it up, that's fine. Just click the little raise hand thingy.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn too how to, I'm not really good. I don't multitask. So I'm not really good at reading the chat when I'm talking.
You did great. You did fantastic. All right. Well, hold on. I see a hand going up over there. Let me find who it was. Oh, it's Laura. Here we go. Laura,
Can you hear me?
we can.
Yep.
So you know about writer's block. Do you ever have like business development block or WordPress block? Like, do you ever get to a point where you're like, I really can't help this person with WordPress?
Yeah, so it happens. And I think I was joking with you about this, but I do it often. I'll like write an email and I don't put anybody in the 2-line, or I'll put myself in the 2-line so Gmail doesn't delete it. And I'll go take the dogs for a walk or whatever and come back and reread it and understand my tone was just totally incorrect. And I did it today with you. I said, read this email and tell me if I sound like a jerk. And you said yes. You said yes. I did, and it was true. And I did sound like a jerk, because you do get to a point of frustration. There's not many situations where I'm like, hey, WordPress isn't going to do this, or WordPress isn't going to be the solution. That doesn't happen too often. What does happen is that people want YouTube for $1,000, right? And so how do I explain to a client, like, your expectations are not meeting the budget that you have in place? And that is what I think becomes the most stressful for me, or the most trying to kind of explain that to a client. And so that's where that education piece becomes so vital, because we kind of like, by the way, I'm just choking the coughs, just to be clear. There's this expectation that we set with WordPress, right? It's really easy. 5-minute install, famous 5-minute install. All these themes are available. All these plugins are available. It's very easy, if you're not in this world, to look at all of that, be completely mesmerized by the ease of use, and think that you can do things yourself. I get that, right? So I need to kind of like flip my brain a little bit when I'm talking to a client who believes that, oh, but it's so easy. Or my favorite, and I was yelling about this all day too, Laura, lift and shift. That's not a thing. It's not a thing. You can never just lift and shift something, right? There's always more work that goes into it, but that's why I've been doing this for 10 years. That's why I study all the time. That's why I spend my time questioning engineers as much as possible to understand it, because it really is my responsibility at that point to explain to a client the misconception that they had or they have about this is a technology. Sure, WordPress 5-minute install premium theme is great for like a 5-page informational site that is going to require no action from a user. But the truth is, if a client is reaching out to you to do a project, or because they need a website, they don't know how to do it, or they would have already done it. And that's something to really keep in mind or remember when you're talking to a client. And I have to often swallow my pride and go back to square one and think about how I always viewed WordPress and how it was explained to me, so I could get that client to a place where they understand that if it were that easy, they wouldn't need me at all. And they should go ahead and try it. You know, try to set it up. It's not going to end well. And we all know that, right? I mean, I'm not saying it like that to my client, to be fair, but it really becomes a conversation of here's what WordPress really is. Here's the steps that are truly involved in your project. And let me tell you why I know that, because we did this one that's very similar to yours, and I want you to see how this one ended up. And so again, it just goes back to that education piece. We're teachers, but also, as I said, be patient. Sometimes I often have to step away and answer tomorrow. And that has become a little mantra for me.
Can I just say that you touched on something in yours, which so for me, whenever I'm talking to people about like how to sell WordPress or how to sell to a client, you know, I always lead with empathy. Like, if you come from a place of empathy, then you understand that it's like putting your butt in their seat and understanding that. And I thought that the point that you made, which I'm going to end up stealing, is when you talked about that the other person, two things. One, that they didn't go to school to be a client. That is important to remember. But also that person themselves, this could very well make or break their position at that company. So if you think of that and then as you're doing that, having that place of empathy, I think
Mhm.
those two things tie together so well and become uh, just such a much easier sell, because you can understand like that information that they're about to get and know how it's going to hit them. So I thought that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and that is often true, right? Like, so if you're talking to like a marketing director or whatever, they have somebody that they need to answer to, but it's they're tasked with
Yeah.
getting this new web presence up or whatever. They're just as scared and nervous as you are.
Yeah, totally. Totally. All right. Well, I tell you what, that was fantastic. You guys out there, go ahead, and if you have additional questions, you are welcome to just continue to throw them into the Q&A. So if you think about something, just throw it right in there, and I will make sure that Jody answers that. Um, Jody, if you want, obviously you're totally, I hope you'd stick around. But I will tell you that if you want, you're welcome to turn off your camera, and I'll just kind of take over from here.
Yep,
There was,
I will turn off my camera because I know you're all sick of looking at me, and I'm gonna drink some wine while you talk now.
by the way, I don't know if this didn't happen for you, but I did notice myself that while being on screen, you're not muted, just so you know. I touch my face a lot. I'm trying so hard not to. Holy cow! And I'm sure you guys were over there going, "Oh, John touched his face again." So I will. I'll try not to do that for the next little bit. So I realized that there was one thing that I wanted to do in the opening slides, and I didn't. And now I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to do it now, which is for all of the folks that are on the meetup. One of the things that I like to do at our meetup a lot of times is ask folks to. Say like just a quick little 15 seconds about who they are, what their website is, and why they came to the meetup. People come to the meetups for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes they're a developer and they're actually looking for clients. That's awesome. If that's the case, jot a quick note into the chat real quick and just say who you are, what your name is, maybe a link to your website. And then some people are looking for a developer, or they're looking for a designer or a copywriter or a marketer or a newsletter specialist. Awesome. Let's take the next couple of minutes and everybody just go ahead and throw whatever you want into the chat room. Yeah, because we would love to I would love to help promote that. And one of the things that we find when we do this at our meetup is a lot of times I'll have somebody on one side say they're looking for a developer, and on the other side I'll have a developer who's over there, and those two end up being a perfect connection. So meetups for me are all about the connections, and that's what this is all about. I love teaching. I do. There's no doubt about that. But I like connecting people. So you guys do that for just a second. I'm going to take another sip of this before I get started. And I am going to say thank you one more time to Jody. That was a fantastic presentation. Every single slide was just jam-packed with just so much good stuff. So that was awesome. That was awesome. All right. So our next presentation is this guy. I am going to be doing a presentation. I'm going to show you a carousel / slider plugin. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into screen share mode. Awesome. So if things are going well, you should be able to see my example company website, which is, as you can tell, pretty awesome. Let's see. The chat closed, so I cannot see the chat at the moment. Let me pull that back up. There it is. Okay, great. So I am going to show you a slider plugin. Here's what happened. I was working on a little project. I was just messing around with my own website, and I was trying to find a place to put some testimonials. And after I started placing the testimonials, they looked like crap, and I did not like the way that they were working. And so I was trying to find a good slider. I thought that a slider might be a better way of going about it, that it might take up less space, and I'm not a huge fan of sliders or carousels really, but if they do kind of what you're looking for and they serve a purpose, then I'll allow it. And in this particular instance, it was going to serve the purpose that I needed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you first this right here. So the tool that I'm using is a slider called Slick. And the interesting thing about this is this did not start off as a WordPress plugin. This is, if you go to this URL, and we'll put it in the show notes, but if you go to this URL, this is actually it's a library that you can use, and you can easily add it. And why I like it so much is because this is going to just show you, like, you'll see the demo for each one of these. You can see how this particular one slides. But it's a little tiny bit of JavaScript that you can then just kind of tweak to do all of these different things. So there's like a base set of code, and then adding into that is pretty darn simple. So for example, here's the single, then you've got like the multi-item like this, where you can see that it's sliding 3 at a time. And if I wanted it, I could change the slide 3 at a time to only slide 1 if I only wanted to incrementally move left or right. These ones are responsive, doing pretty much the same thing, but you can kind of see as we do this, while it's being responsive, you can easily add, so at this breakpoint, I want to do these additional things to it, etc., etc., etc. Variable width ones, 200, 175, 150, etc. So you can just see, like, and I don't know if you can see how long this this page is. It's gigantic because there are just a ton of these that are available for a whole bunch of different things. So my initial thought was I was going to take Slick and I was going to just go write my own, not necessarily a plugin, but I was going to just go write this into my own website and then go and do some design. And then I had the brilliant idea of I should do a quick search for WordPress Slick Slider. And that is when I found this little gem here, which is the WP Slick Slider image carousel. So before I get too far into this, I will tell you that this is the solution that I ended up using. But what I noticed was, since the last time I used this, they have now added a link right here to a third-party site called Max Galleria. And this is basically Slick Slider for WordPress. But on steroids. It's pretty crazy. I did not use this one. This is actually, they have a free version. I didn't do any comparison to see what their free version versus the other one was. But but when I looked at their paid version, you can see that it's got like a whole settings page with just an absolute ton of different options here. So this may be a solution for you. This is not the one that I'm going to show off tonight, but this is just another option, and a pretty darn cool one actually. So depending on what you're trying to do, this may actually be a better solution for you. But the one that I'm going to show you, I think you're going to find is going to be pretty solid. This one does have a lot, and sometimes this is going to be a little bit overkill, but it is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and close that one. No, I'm not. I'm going to go back because I need to show you something. Nope, we're done with that one. All right, so here we go. Online support put out WordPress plugins and themes, WP Slick Slider, and image carousel. So this is a very simple WordPress plugin install, just like you're used to. Nothing to it. The way that it works is, and I'll show you an example in a minute, but there are basically two different shortcodes. One is a slider, and then one is a carousel. So depending on how you're putting this into your site, if you wanted, you could basically copy the slider or the slider carousel shortcode. But if you were trying to put it into a template, you could also do it through the do shortcode way. And then on top of that, once you get that added, there are a whole host of parameters that you can add with this, with each of the shortcodes, and they've broken them out into two sections. And I'm not going to go through them all right now because I want to show you a couple of examples first. But so you can limit and category and show content, etc., etc., etc. And then down here is the carousel slider, and there's a whole bunch of other ones there. This plugin also has a premium version. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even look at it because what I needed was all well within the free version. The one big thing that I thought that was interesting was these Gutenberg block supports. I will tell you that the plugin I'm going to show you, the free version, actually works right in the in Gutenberg as well. So I'm not 100% sure what they're talking about. So maybe it adds additional features, which is very possible. But we're not gonna delve too far into the pro stuff at this particular point. So, all right. So let's go over first. And this particular site that I'm working on is built in Beaver Builder. So I'm going to just quickly load up Beaver Builder. And I have already created a handful of slides for this particular site. So I'm going to just quickly I'm going to just throw my new slider right in between this section and this section. And it is going to be an HTML block. And I'm going to, whoops, where'd we go? All right, so you don't have to see me type. I'm going to just quickly add in the slick slider category. 5 is the name, is my particular category. Done, publish. So all I've really done at this particular point is just added the category. And so you can see I've kind of used some large images here, but so this slider, it will carousel on its own, which is nice. You can click through with the arrows. You can navigate with the dots. And as a very quick, super quick intro, like this is just as easy as it gets. So let's go and add a couple of options here. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and copy and paste skills are suspect here. All right, so this right here is the slider by default, and now I'm going to just switch over to the carousel slider as well. That, and there you go. So this right here is just out of the box. So you can see like the images, if they were all lined up like sized exactly, then they would fit a little bit better, but there's that. Okay, so now what I want to show you is let's take a look at when you are on this plugin URL. I told you that they've got a whole bunch of these different parameters, but this particular link right here, the demos and features, is super helpful in getting you to see what our options are. Don't mind their crazy looking site, but as we get down to here, so you can see that they've got multiple different designs. So design 1 is the default. If I had added that, great. But if I don't, pardon me, if I don't add it, this is what we're getting by default, which is what you saw a second ago. But then there's a whole bunch of other ones that are really pretty cool. So here's design 2, so we could have the content showing up over the top of it. Design 3, content again, but maybe in a little floaty box, which is nice. Design 4, design 5, and then down here is design 6, but this one is actually for the carousel slider. And then the center mode and some variable width stuff, etc. Lazy load, which is a very nice thing. And the way that all of these get added is you just end up adding additional parameters inside of your shortcode. So let's hop back over here for just a second, and I'm going to just update this to a couple of the different designs, and I'll talk through this as I get onto here. Come on. All right. So what I've done here now is I'm going back to the slick slider. I'm still using category 5. Here's design 1. I'm actually going to go and switch this to design 2 so you can see it. And I want to set the height on these now to be 400. And I want the image fit to be true. And I'll show you why we're doing that in just a second here. So let's publish that. Hit refresh. All right. No, I don't need to translate. Okay, so now you can see what I've done is I've made these to be a little bit more of a reasonable size. They're not gigantic. Um, Steve Lyons just asked, are these responsive and how do they look on mobile? Let's take a little look here. So you can kind of see it does very easily handle very nicely on mobile, very responsive. All right, so this right here is it would be a very easy way. Now I could go a little bit further, and I'll show this in a second. If I wanted to put a call to action, I could easily have added a text link in there, or maybe a button link or something like that, and then just targeted that with some CSS to make it look how I want. So let's hop back in again. I'm going to just jump over to design 4. So the nice part about this is you get to kind of see what just having like a little bit of the, and I'll show you what the slide entry looks like. But I really like this one here. I thought this was another really nice look. Now on something like this, these dots and or the arrows could be a little bit distracting. So you can turn those off, which is one of the great parameters in here. I don't think you necessarily need both arrows and dots. So you could come in and say, well, I don't want the arrows. So let's just say arrows equals false. Save that, publish, and refresh. So now I no longer have the arrows on there, so they're not kind of laying over my content, and I still have the dots if I wanted to do any navigation, like manual navigation. While you're in here, you'll take a, let's see, there's a couple of different ones. So there's a couple of interesting ones where you can limit the number of slides. -1 is going to be unlimited. If you remember, I had a specific category that I was bringing those in, that I was bringing for this particular slider, and I'll show you why that is. So let's go ahead and just for a second, we'll just jump back into the dashboard. So over here
You
under,
have a question.
What's that?
You have a question.
I do, where?
Are they responsive? How do they look on mobile?
Yeah, we just covered that.
Oh, did I miss it?
Yeah, but I can show it again.
Oh, the question pop up, sorry.
Sorry. Yes, I already answered it, but I'm happy to show it again, and I'll show it in just a minute, actually. So the slick slider, so if I click on slick slider, you'll see that I've actually got, so we were looking at these first ones, which was animal pictures 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but you can also see that I've created, and they're all in a category over here called animals, and then I've created another one, which is testimonials. So on that home page, you saw that I had, as part of my shortcode, I had included the category of being category 5, and the reason for that was because I don't want to mix my animals with my testimonials. That would be a pretty silly looking slider now, wouldn't it? But it's very easy to create a slider category, and one of the things that I absolutely love about this particular plugin is how easy they make finding the shortcode as a starting point for you. So if I created a brand new category, it would just automatically show that right in here. So you can see here's category 5 for the animals, and then category 6, and it also gives you both of them, which are the slider version and then the carousel slider version. So very handy, easy to use by breaking them up into categories. So technically speaking, you can have literally an unlimited number of sliders on your website in different categories. If I go back to Slick Slider here, you can see all of these entries. And so I'm going to just go ahead and click on animal number 1. And you can see that here's the title, which was that title that was showing at the top when we were showing our content. And then you can put in any text. So if I wanted to create a link, I'm actually not going to do that right now, which is totally fine. I'll show you the something else in a second. It's not a big deal. And then here's where this the featured image just becomes what image you want as to be the slider. And then you pick the category, or you could add a new category right from here, which is actually how I created those other two. Very simple, not a lot to them, which is exactly what I was looking for in a in a slider plugin. So let's go back, and so you can see the testimonials here. So you can see on the testimonials one, I didn't even go to the trouble of adding a slide, an image, because I didn't need it. And I'll show you what I did for that one instead, which was, nope. So if I go over to the testimonials page, you can see here, this is what I wanted for the testimonials, which is just a very simple slide. I removed the dots and instead had the arrows. So let's just take a quick look at what this one looks like. And this particular one, I actually built this page using Gutenberg. So you can just see, you know, here's the title, and then here is the this is the shortcode just thrown right in. Actually, this, I didn't even put it into a shortcode box. This is actually a paragraph one, but so you can see here, Slick Slider, category 6. I've chosen design number 5. I've changed the speed at which the slides progress, and then I told it to turn off the dots. So very easy stuff. There's obviously I could you know, add other content above or below this. Super simple. Not much to it on that side. Let's see. Yes, the Laura, it would be great if the animals could give the testimonials. All right, let's get back to, where were we? Here we go. Okay, so I do want to show you that when I was, one of the things, because of what I was trying to do with my particular need, is I also wanted to, I didn't want it to show the title, which unfortunately there wasn't an option for not showing the title. So I'm going to just kind of show you how I solved that. Maybe somebody will pipe in and say I did it wrong, and that would be great if you have a different way of going about it. But let me show you what I did. I went from here and I went to the customizer. By the way, I'm going to be wrapping this presentation up here in about 5 minutes. So if you have any good WordPress questions that you're looking to have asked during our Q&A section, now is probably a good time to maybe start typing them up, or get ready and we will, you can raise your hand and ask it that way. So, all right. So what I did to get rid of this particular title is I went into the additional CSS, did a little right click and inspect. And I really should dock this. There we go. Okay. All right. So here we go. I was able to find what the title, here is the class for that title. So I'm going to copy that. And then down here, so all I did was I found what the class name was. I added a little bit of additional CSS. You know, I try not to, in this particular meetup, in the general meetup, try not to look at too terribly much code. So this might not necessarily be the way that you would go about it. Totally understand that. That's fine. If you need some help with CSS, obviously we have folks in the Facebook group, which is a great way to go ask questions, or in the Slack channel, you could ask questions there as well. But this was a very simple bit of code that got me to what I was trying to do for the project that I was working on. So let's close that. Let's close that, sorry. And so now, if I refresh my page, you can see I've now hidden that. And then I could, obviously there's other things I could do to kind of like maybe move this down or just edit the CSS just a little bit. But yeah, this was a super simple plugin. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about it is if you find yourself using sliders on a regular basis, which somebody, when I told them I was doing a presentation about sliders, they said, okay, but you have to be sure to show this website, which is shouldIuseacarousel.com. And it says, so should I use a carousel? No, seriously, you really shouldn't. And then it does give a whole bunch of reasons why you shouldn't. But what do they say about rules? They're made for being broken, and that's what I've done because that's what I've done. All right, so I see that Laura has raised her hand. I cannot figure out where. Hey, Jody, can you open up? Do you have the ability to
Yeah, I do.
let Laura talk?
I think so.
All right.
Maybe? No.
No. All right. Then I'm going to stop sharing because that seems to be the only way that I can get to. That is ridiculous, is what that is. All right. Here we
chat with her. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. Here comes Laura.
Okay. So why is there such a conflict in opinions about carousels and sliders and all of that? Like, I feel like there's not even a gray area. It's like either people are anti it or people love it. And I don't know what the right answer is. Like, why is there conflict?
Sure. And I can tell you, the people that love it are website owners. The boss loves sliders always because in the boss's mind, people are going to come to their site, they're going to see that there's a slider, and they are going to sit in front of that screen. They're not going to scroll. They're going to just sit there for the next 27 hours until they've gone through every single slide that the boss has forced upon them into this particular slider. That's who loves them. Now let's talk about reality. When you go to a website, how long do you stay staring at a slider? Not long.
Well, I was staring at the little animals one because that was really cute.
Yes. Was the animals one adorable? Yes. Was it informative? Not really. And that's kind of the problem, is it's just not a really good way. Most people, like, a slider is not going to be the best way to convey information because people are not going to sit here and read them. It's okay if you've got like maybe one or two things. And again, if used sparingly, I think that there is a place for sliders. But you really have to think about it. But it's just like anything else on your website, right? You need to make sure that what you're putting there is actually serving a purpose and serving the right purpose, and not just serving the purpose of, well, the boss wanted one. What is the boss really trying to get out of that slider? And that's the thing that you need to figure out is, hey, what is it you're trying to convey? What is it you want the action to be? Like, is there an action that needs to be taken? So that's kind of my both sides of the fence. Anybody want to dispute that or got something to add to that?
You know, I can't ever shut up. It's like impossible for me. But you know, I think the thing with sliders is that it's a fundamental issue of, I have so much information that I think is really important. My customers need to see all of it, and the only way that I could disseminate that information appropriately is by jamming it into a slider. And the deeper issue is, why do you think all of that information is important, number one?
Right.
What user are you trying to get that information to? And is that really the best path forward for your particular user? It's a usability question. It's a user experience question. It's not so much about the functionality of the slider itself, but it's all about the user experience of it. And like, to your point, John, is it serving a purpose? I think oftentimes it's used as a lazy way of not trying to figure out what is the right information that should be on your homepage.
Yeah.
Your homepage is not meant to be a hub for everything that you know or can offer somebody.
The homepage must have a link to every page on my entire website that has ever been created ever. You know how we're going to do that? With a slider. That's
exactly it, right?
Yeah. It's, again, it's just, I'm not going to say that there's not a good reason for them, because sometimes there is. But yeah, you really need to make sure what you're trying to get out of it, for sure. So cool. All right. Yeah, that's interesting. I can't. Oh, somebody else is raising their hand. All right, hold on. We have got a question coming in from Steve. Hey, Steve.
I am unmuting now.
All right.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So, question, product tables. I'm looking for a great product table, particularly for mobile application. But yes, desktop, obviously, but mobile better.
It's a great question. I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately. I know. I
expect more from you.
So do I, really, truthfully. I don't know why people expect more from me. That I don't know what I've done to do that. But so are you looking for like a pricing table?
I'm not quite sure what the difference is between pricing and product table, but essentially I'm looking for rows that customers can just kind of go down the list and say, I want one of those, two of those, five of those, hit the checkout, and they're gone.
Gotcha. I'm going to show you something that a buddy sent me, and I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're looking for. Jason, I saw your link in there, and I'll pull that up in just a second. Thank you. Okay, so AR prices, top selling price comparison, and so you're kind of looking for kind of like the Chinese menu ordering system where you're going to have, I want one of these, one of those, and each one of those adds an additional price to the, or like adds additional cost to the item?
No, they're all individual products.
Oh, okay.
It's not like you're building a cheeseburger, if you will, and you're adding pickles and tomatoes and onions. This is, they're all independent items. They're just being added to the cart. So you're just kind of scrolling through a list of products. And on that list, you'd probably have a small picture, the product name, the price, how many you want, and then add to cart. So let's say 5 selections across the row.
Yeah. Are you using WooCommerce?
Yes.
So is this more like WooCommerce variable product pricing, like variable add-ons?
No, it's not. It's the regular simple product, simple price. I mean, it's just the regular product, regular price.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to doing something different if someone has a good idea about how to set that up.
Oh, that's funny. I just realized I was not sharing my screen when I asked you if this was helping. That's funny. Let me do that real quick. Let me just share my screen, and I'm going to share. Okay. If you take a look in the chat, Jason Janus is adding links over there. I would start with what he has to offer. That's probably more in his wheelhouse than in mine.
Jason, if I could throw this one at you, I'm using Divi.
Jason, I'm gonna find you real quick, and I don't know if you have a microphone, but I just unmuted you. You don't have a mic set up. Okay. All right. That's all right. Well, cool. So here's what I would suggest, Steve. I would start by taking a look at some of the plugins that Jason is mentioning there. And then if those do not end up solving what you're looking for, if you go into, if you're on the Facebook group already, Jason is in there. You can definitely ping him there. And that's a great question that I would love to, if there's an answer that actually solves what you're looking for, obviously post a link to your site or your project, and then with the solution, because those are great things that people like to, bring up from time to time. And if we have an answer that we could point them to, that would be great.
Super. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So, any questions about Jody's presentation? Any questions about Steve? Did you raise your hand again? I'm not sure if you did or not.
I did not. Oh,
Okay,
I haven't lowered my hand. That's
got it.
my hand is lowered.
All right, I'm lowering your hands. There we go. Okay, good deal. Any questions about WordPress in general? Anything I can answer for you, I guess, is really what where we're at. We are in that we've got about a half an hour left on this particular meetup. But if at this particular time, the next thing that needs to happen is we all need to go and self-quarantine, Purell ourselves to death and drink beer, I'm okay with that as well. All right. Well, then at this particular point, I'm going to say that I'm going to, beer is always the answer. You got that right. You got that right. I'm going to say thank you again to Jody. Your presentation was fantastic. I really appreciate it. As always, if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to us through Slack. I did see that a couple of people signed up for Slack, for the WordPress Vegas Slack. I'll get you added shortly. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook channel. We've got a lot of great information in there. We will do this again. I would love any feedback. If you guys have any questions or suggestions on ways to make this online version of the meetup better, I would love to hear that as well. So, all right, Jody, any of that final?
I was just going to say thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking with all of you. Aria wanted to visit the party for a second.
Obviously, look at that cute face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good deal. Well, thank you so much. I will get this recording online shortly. Have a good evening, everybody.